Good afternoon and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-to-Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I'm a licensed MFD, licensed marriage and family therapist, and a certified sexologist in full-time private practice in Encino, California. And today we have such a beautiful, gorgeous weather. As I'm looking at it outside, the window is just beautiful, pretty beautiful.
Pretty beautiful. Beautiful, pretty. I'm Dr. Robert Jaffe. I am also a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified hypnotherapist, and I'm here with my pretty beautiful partner, Dr. Mitra Risdian, my friend, my colleague, my partner, and we are here to share with you some of what we've learned over many years of practice and study, all with the goal of helping you discover your loving, authentic, true self. Today we focus on one aspect, which is an important aspect, which is your sexual self. And most people don't even know that they have a sexual self. They know that they have sexual feelings, but they don't know what a sexual self is. They don't know what to make of that when we say that. So we're here to talk about that and help educate you. And we hope that you will be both entertained and educated. And we also invite you to call us. Our number is 951-922-3532. At any time during the next hour, we'd be happy to chat with you, and we can keep yourself anonymous if you wish, but anything that you want to ask us or comment on, I'm sure will be of benefit to our listeners. So please do that.
Yes, thank you. And the aim is, that whatever we are presenting here is for you to benefit from it. And if, you know of somebody that can benefit from our discussion here, which today we are going to refer to one of the most important aspects of our lives as sexual beings. And October has been known for Domestic Violence Awareness Month globally, and therefore you probably have heard from other, medias that everybody talks about domestic violence, right?
Absolutely.
And prevention of that. So you may ask yourself what exactly violence means, how it happens, and and then how it could be related to you, right?
Absolutely.
So when we look at, the literature, violence means any act of harshness, physical, whether that's physical or emotional, that impacts another person physically or emotionally. That is called violence. That is called hurting another person in a way that not only it's detrimental, but it can actually leave everlasting impact on the person's life, right? And sometimes not even to that extent, and sometimes even far less mild. But then the point is that violence, no matter how it happens, it can impact the person who is the receiver of the violence act.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we may say, how violence, what type do we have that, we are really concerned about? So violence happens at many levels. One of them is during wartime, right? So we don't have many of the wars that happened before in the past, but still, we have some going on across the globe, little ones, bigger ones, right? And so those are all, actually those, whatever impact they have everlasting impact. We see so many of our soldiers come back home with lots of, emotional damages, such as post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, right? as well, of course, as physical injuries. People can lose their limbs, they can lose their eyesight, or, and it's interesting because I'm a science fiction buff, and I started, reading and watching science fiction when I was a kid. And what struck me always was that the aliens in the science fiction stories and in TV and movies, the aliens didn't look like us. They weren't human. They would have two heads or four arms or tentacles. And I thought, yeah, those are aliens. They're not human. But now, what I've realized is that people consider anyone not like them aliens.
Right. Right.
And if you're not like me, then and you're different, then you are an alien, and that you may be life-threatening to me, so I might have to kill you before you kill me.
Right.
And that's pretty much the way the world has developed, unfortunately.
Right. I remember when I first came to the U.S., when I was given my number, it was called my alien number, and I said, since when did I become an alien? Don't I belong to this universe? Don't I belong to this globe? And how did I become an alien? So to me, that was very, actually, humiliating. Why am I being called an alien? I mean, but then again, I had to get used to it, right? So anyway, like many other things. So,
and alien comes from the word alienated.
Alienated,
right? So alienated means to be set aside, set apart from other people, and not like other people.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and you always have that, title is like like you have this pin, hooked on your chest that marks you as somebody that you don't belong to this group.
Right.
Right, and then you are referred as that in many different ways and in many different tones of voice and in many different of anything that can reconfirm to you that don't forget you are an alien. So that's one form of violence. The other form of violence is interpersonal violence, right?
Right.
And people are wondering, what do you mean by interpersonal? Well, that means that however we are within family, how we connect with each other and how we are treated within the family, that becomes also part of our interpersonal quality, right? We receive a message, this is how the life is, and we take on to that message and we continue with that and we pass it on to the next generation or to the people next to us, right?
Right.
When we see children hitting each other, you're wondering, how did children, learn to hit each other around age maybe 10, 12, right? So they learn it from TV, they learn it from, everybody else in society. So it's unfortunately violence at the interpersonal level is an act that is quickly learned and it is quickly applied because we are, as human beings, we just want to survive. So whatever means we have, we do that.
Survival is number one.
Right. However, those can be handled, right? At least they are at the interpersonal level between kids. We can train them, teach them not to do that. The type of violence that, specifically I want to refer to, which most people actually don't want to talk about it, right? And that is, sexual abuse, right? I'm looking at the statistic that I downloaded from UNICEF, and they are the same with WHO, World Health Organization. They are the same as RINE. They are the same as any other statistic that I looked at during this week. And they are telling me, sexual abuse by far has the highest rate, right? In particular, among children. And guess what that number is per year? 65%.
65%. What does that number mean?
65% of reported abuse are sexual abuse.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And then 25% is physical abuse, 8% is neglect, 7% is witness to violence, 3% is drug, and then 7% are others, right? And then here's another very important, report that when we look at another statistic about how child sexual abuse happens among children, right? Again, according to the same organizations, 93% of the people that, actually create the abuse are known by the abuse by the people who receive it. Like children know 93% of
their abusers.
Of their abusers. 93%.
Yeah.
That is so significant, right? So 7% are strangers with absolutely no background of knowing them. 59% are people that they know among their family members. Right? So out of those 93%, 59% of them are among family members, like uncles, like close family friends, like cousins, right? And then 34% are parents.
Wow.
Isn't that, this is really sad. I mean, when I was looking at this each year, and this is per 2018, 2019.
Very current.
Very current, and that's based on, that's the most current information that we have. And it is so alarming, so sad to hear that, we have this kind of a, statistic. So now we look at, basically how many children actually are abused per year in the United States. Well, at least 700,000.
It's a lot of people.
That means as you and I are talking, at least one child is being abused in different form, right? But for the most part, it's been sexual abuse, right? And so
it's a very sad and alarming statistic.
Yeah. So 1 out of 9, one out of 9 is being, every minute is being, sexually abused, and 34% of them are below age 12, right? And then 66% are between age 12 and 17.
Wow.
Right. And then one of the most dangerous part of a person's life in terms of abuse, which usually ends up to death, is during the first year of birth. That's when, children die out of, neglect or maltreatment or other forms of abuse when they are below 1 year of age.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So we got our notice about commercial break, and after commercial break, we meet you back again here, and we will discuss more about this topic. Thank you. PM, please join us. Thank you. Welcome back to Heart-to-Heart at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here. We're talking today about domestic violence, and in particular children's abuse of any kind, in particular sexual abuse. And please call us 951-922-3532. And please share this program with those that you believe they can benefit from, and we look forward to hearing from you. So, Dr. Robert.
Yes.
This is a very touchy subject, and each time I have talked about this, I see that realistically there is far more need to bring this to people's attention, and not just have one program assigned to it, because there is so much to know about. Many people don't even recognize that they are being abused or they are abusers. They think that the way they live is a normal way of life.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people, despite all of the studies and all of the scientific articles and all of the psychological awareness that we've had over the past 30 or 40 years, many people still believe in corporal punishment.
Mm-hmm.
They believe that it's okay to hit your kid or smack your kid in order to, quote, teach them a lesson, not realizing that you are teaching them a lesson, but the lesson that you're teaching them is not what you hoped it would be.
Well, it's the lesson they learn for their life.
Right.
To
right.
become an abuser.
Yeah, that when you hit somebody, you're teaching them through your behavior that given the right circumstances, it's okay to hit someone.
Right, but what they don't realize that we have a report that at least in 2018 and to between 2018 and 2019, at least 2,000 children were killed as a result of domestic violence,
Mm-hmm.
as a result of sexual abuse and other forms of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
And that's really a lot. That's too many innocent children dying because somebody was unable to understand how their temper and how their way of discipline and how their way of perception about to treat children can actually cause them death.
Yeah, and death, of course, is the worst thing, the worst thing that can happen. But there are also living hells that people can be put
Mm-hmm.
in when they are treated abusively and when they're not loving, when they're not given the love and nurturance and support that they need. It creates inside of them a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety that can lead to drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and worst of all, an unhappy human being who goes through life touching other people's lives in a way that makes them unhappy.
Right. Right.
So it's very important that people get a sense of how important it is to break the chain, break the cycle, and to not be unloving to another human being, especially your child.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm looking at other numbers here. It says that in 2018, more than 3.5 million children received an investigation about a form of child abuse.
Are you talking about worldwide or in the United States?
I'm talking about United States.
3.5 million.
3.5 million received an investigation.
Uh-huh.
That means, well, not all of them were confirmed as,
Right.
as child abuse, but they were suspicious of child abuse.
Yeah.
And, if we will look at the population of United States, which is, I believe, was 350 million,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Around, yeah.
So 1% of population
Mm-hmm.
were investigated for suspect, and these are children. That means people below age 18.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think it has to do with part of it too is that we aren't taught about how to handle our emotions.
Right.
We're not taught that in school, and I think it would be wonderful if we were, but we're not. For some reason, people don't teach that. And if you're not taught how to handle your emotions in a way that not only is not hurtful, but in a way that's productive, then your emotions can run away with you. Our emotions are where people live.
Right.
And we think that we're intellectual creatures, but actually we're much more emotional than we are intellectual.
Right.
And the emotions, if we don't know how to handle our emotions, we don't have the ability to help our children learn how to handle theirs. And it goes from generation to generation.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then here also again it says at least 15% of kids are poly-victimized. That means they suffer from more than one form of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that one can become sexually abused, they can be physically abused, they can be maltreated, they can be neglected,
Mm-hmm.
or all together, at the same time.
Right.
And among that, we also have, intimate partner violence.
Mm-hmm.
So both mom and the child can become, either a survivor of abuse. That means that they go through the abuse and they come out alive.
Right.
or they actually lose their life, or lose, physically become permanently, disabled.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we want to talk about different types of abuse, uh, so it's physical, emotional, sexual, childhood experiences, and we have a shaken baby syndrome. I think this is where the ones that they are below age of 1, that they die because parents, when
they shake them.
when the child cries,
They shake
they
them.
just shake them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then well, so the other ones that we see that is really, alarming. um, we see that, each year the number of young adults or children below age 18 who go to prison, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they go to prison for a variety of crimes that they have made,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we see that 14% of them are male, and 36% of them are female, and they have been, abused as children, right? Or they have received, different form of abuse themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, this is how, we talked about earlier, how, human being still believes in,
Might makes right.
Right.
Yeah, might makes right.
Exactly.
And so I'm bigger and stronger than you, so
Right.
I have the right to hit you or
Right.
to force my will on you.
Right. So despite the growth in terms of technology, despite the growth that we have in terms of education, despite the fact that we have found our way to go to the moon and to the Mars and to the other, galaxy part, right? Mm-hmm. The one thing that we have not grown at all, and perhaps we have become even worse because now we have cyber violence as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is that we haven't grown as a person and learning how to interact with each other and how to communicate with each other safely and not so cruel.
Which is a step towards loving each other. But of course, loving each other is on one end of the spectrum, and abusing each other is on the other end. And what you just commented on is a step towards loving, but that's not even loving. It's just not doing harm. I mean, there's not doing harm, and then there's treating another person kindly and lovingly. And we're not close to that yet. We're not close to treating the other person kindly and lovingly.
I'm not sure that even we are not close. I think we have a step far back from it too, right? I mean, look at, our children, especially during pandemic, and we are not receiving accurate, statistics about now child abuse because most kids are at home and there is nobody to report and there is nobody to collect the report, right? So, and children are spending on lots of time online. And we know that, cyber violence is significant. We know that sexual abuse and child abuse online is significant. So not only we haven't learned how to stop abuse, we have transformed it using technology. And via technology now we are actually, abusing our children, abusing women, abusing many people in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know really if it's we step back or not, but certainly we find new creative ways to not be kind and loving.
Well, I'm saying that because if our numbers are increasing every time there is a new data available, which suggests that the rate of abuse has increased, then I'm saying we are stepping away from it.
Okay. Okay.
Because otherwise, why would we have increased rate of abuse going on?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's because more are being reported now. I mean, I don't know.
That's also significant. Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
that is significant.
Yeah. So I don't know. All I know is that one is too many. One is too many, and whether it's 1 million or whether it's 10 million, it's still horrific, and the goal is, of course, how do we get a handle on it, and how do we teach people to handle their emotions better? Because
Right.
that's really what it's about. It's about how to handle your emotions.
Right. And of course, these reports, they haven't included the stat on sex trafficking,
Mm-hmm.
which is that, by itself is another.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrific. It's horrific. It's man's inhumanity to man, and unfortunately, like I said, we've learned a lot in science and neuroscience and psychology, but to get that information into the hands of people in a way that's understandable to them and in a way that teaches them seems to be something that's very, very difficult for us to accomplish.
Right. And so let's see, what is the, situational or permanent, side effect of abuse on our children.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, okay, yeah.
So, first of all, when these children, they become abused, many of them become so fearful that they don't talk about it, especially if they know the abuser.
Right.
And we know that only 7%, up to 7% of the children don't know the abusers, right? So majority are known to the child. Majority of them are known to the teenager. Majority are known to family members, but they don't talk. In particular, when people come from cultures that, talking about sexuality and being, a subject of rape or sexual abuse, they don't talk about it because they think they're going to lose their respect within family members and community, and it becomes a shame of the family. And we know that, this is a diverse country, so we have many people living here from diverse country that they actually are, now we know they are the target of abuse as well, right? And then there's lots of hush-hush going on among these family members and community members. And unfortunately, the more hush-hush, the more increase in sexual abuse and domestic violence and all of that, right? So we see that one of the things that happens is unwanted, pregnancy, right, as a result of sexual abuse. We have a rate now, 25% more on top of whatever it was before, that we have, unwanted teen pregnancy, right? So that's one of the consequences, right? We see a greater, risk for sexual transmitted diseases, right?
Yes. Yeah, and those, of course, are just the physical consequences of that.
Right. Yeah. We see an increased rate of, hidden abortions. Right. Because who wants to raise a child that was conceived as a result of a sexual abuse, rape?
Yes.
And then if they don't want their family to know, they find variety of ways to go through abortion, right? And so that they don't have to raise a child that way.
Right.
Right. And then when abortions are done privately and without the supervision of a physician, right, we know that one of the number one cause is infection, and to follow with that is the chance of dying as a result.
Or sterility.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, not to mention, the psychological disorders that's going to continue with that, right? And then just looking at the estimate that they have provided so far to take care of the known child abuse, the known domestic violence cases, only those that they are reported and confirmed and everything, close to $600 billion. And who's paying for that?
We are.
We are.
Yeah.
Taxpayers.
Yeah. Which, if the $600 billion, or even a portion of it, could go into education. but we seem not to learn that education is the key to pretty much everything.
Right.
Instead, we enact more laws and we try and prohibit people rather than help people understand what is actually happening inside of them so that they can get a better handle on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have lots of numbers, and I'm just going randomly through some of them that I think they are significant, but realistically, they are all significant, and I wish I could talk about all of them. So for now, we're going through commercial break, and after break, we will continue with this discussion. Thank you.
See you there.
Welcome back from our commercial break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio. Our topic today is domestic violence, and October is a month of domestic violence awareness globally, and we are happy to talk to you about what are some of the factors, the numbers, the statistics, how it happens, and who's the target. And we would like for you to call us 951-922-3532 or introduce this program to those that you believe they may need that. So, Dr. Robert, so let's see how a child becomes a target of, sexual abuse or other forms of abuse. Usually we see that, it starts at home. Parents who they abuse alcohol, parents who they abuse drugs, parents who actually they themselves are involved in domestic violence.
Yeah, and also parents who one of the parents has experienced child sexual abuse themselves.
Right.
Which I think is something that is not talked about often enough.
Right.
And you would say, okay, at a conscious level, you would say, well, if the parent themselves has been sexually abused, they would take pains to make sure that their child wasn't. And certainly that is true in some cases. But in other cases, the parent who was sexually abused themselves has blocked the memory or has so much fear associated with it that they ignore the signs and symptoms that the child is presenting. Sometimes even when the child says specifically that, Uncle John has been, playing touching games with me and stuff like that. And the parent will say, oh, well, that's just Uncle John, and they won't pay attention. And a lot of that is because of the way the subconscious works and the denial that the person goes into because of their own previous exposure to abuse.
Exactly. Right now, I have a client that she's been sexually abused since age 5, and all the way until age 18.
Mm-hmm.
And each time she knew who the abuser was.
Mm-hmm.
Each time she told her mother,
mm-hmm.
right? And her mother totally dismissed them.
Mm-hmm.
And the message that she received was that, basically, the message that she received was that, men sometimes do stuff, don't take it seriously, don't worry about it, it will go away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And now this woman, who's been married for a second time, she's not able to, maintain her relationships.
Right. Right. And she can't maintain the relationship because sex is such a charged subject.
Right.
That, that she can't feel comfortable in her own sexual self.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And that, of course, creates a big problem in the relationship.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not saying that, her partner doesn't have any issues of his own, right? But somehow, subconsciously we select a mate that, partner that brings that part of us up, that, that we still stay in the victim role and not being able to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, the subconscious mind is very important to understand, and most people don't even understand that it exists, let alone what part it plays in the way that we think, feel, and behave in the world. And one thing I can say about the subconscious mind is that the subconscious mind doesn't understand time
Right.
in the same way that our conscious mind does. So if something has happened to me and it's traumatic and it happened 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago, it can still be alive in my subconscious mind and can still be affecting me.
Exactly.
And that's what we call PTSD, post meaning after, traumatic meaning something that has traumatized us, that has scared us, seriously scared us, and stress, the stress of having to go through something that felt life-threatening, very, very scary. So PTSD, that's what it is. And it's about the subconscious mind reliving over and over again the trauma. And certainly if the person gets triggered and it was sexual abuse, and a man and a woman are married, and the man touches the woman, and it can bring up flashbacks and can bring up certainly a lot of fear and uncomfortable feelings. And then she's going to go, oh my God, this is horrible. And so she becomes, totally turned off to making love with her husband. And that's just one simple explanation. There's so many more.
Exactly. The point is that, the authenticity that we always talk about at the beginning of our program, that is taken away from the person who receives the abuse, in particular sexual abuse.
Yes, because our sexuality is the thing that is so powerful in our psychology. The first thing that we recognize after we are born is that we are human. That's the first thing we recognize. The second thing we recognize is our sex. So I'm a human male or I'm a human female, and that's why people who are born where their sex is confused, or they have aspects of both, or they're bisexual, they have a lot of emotional problems usually, because they're not validated for having their unique perspective or their unique feelings, their sexual feelings. But our sexuality is totally connected with our sense of humanity, and totally connected with our sense of authenticity and power in the world.
Right. So, our listeners and our viewers may ask exactly what falls in the category of sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. And I think that's really important to identify and to talk about. So sexual abuse is not just limited to forced intercourse.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Or anal sex.
Correct.
Right? That's only two aspects of it.
Right.
Right? So any form of forced, untouched, physical, bodily touch by somebody else,
yes,
it is considered sexual abuse.
Yes.
Any forced kissing is sexual abuse.
Yes.
Any unwanted touching, forcing to hold hands, or just, inappropriate touching of genitals or body parts, it is called sexual abuse.
Right. And not just force, also coercion.
Right.
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 So people often blackmail other people. I know the secret about you, and unless you do this that I want you to do, I will reveal the secret. So, or if you don't do what I want to do, I will hurt you. Or if you don't do what I want you to do, I'll hurt one of your parents.
Right.
So any kind of coercion, of course, that's sexual abuse.
Right. The other form of sexual abuse is to be forced to take a photo, a snapshot of body parts and post it on internet.
Of course. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which we know that many of young boys and girls, it doesn't really matter these days which one, they are forced and they are bullied to post, a snapshot of their breasts or their genitalia online.
And another form of sexual abuse that I don't think is usually referred to or understood is paying attention to a person's sexual parts.
Right.
So and this can happen in families. Let's say if the father is inappropriate with the daughter and comments on her breasts or comments on how beautiful she is, but he has that tone of voice, or he looks at her in a sexual way, that's also part of sexual abuse.
An inappropriate hug.
Inappropriate hug, any kind of touching, or a hug where you're pushing your genitals against the other person's genitals, anything that makes the other person uncomfortable is a form of sexual abuse. And of course, they're not all equal. Yes. Some are worse than others. But the decider of whether it's abuse or not is not the person who's doing it.
Right.
The decider is the person who receives it. And if you're not sensitive to them, and you discount their feelings, and you tell them they're being too sensitive, or you're misunderstanding, or this or that, then you are part of the abuse cycle, because you're not respecting the other person's boundaries.
Right. And we know that there are a group of professional people who may use their position of power for sexual exchange.
Well, we've seen a lot of that over the past couple of years, right? That's been in the news all the time.
All the time.
The casting couch.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So the more education that we can provide to our children, whether that's coming from a school, from parents, from people like us, the more we do that, the more we can, eliminate or reduce the number of violence that we see. 2000, we are in 2020, 21st century, and we are still, dealing with something as violent as, violence towards our children. So mentality-wise, when I want to look at it, and I really don't want to say that, but how much growth have we had as human beings in terms of how to treat our children? Realistically?
Well, I'm going to say, how much growth have we had as human beings and how to treat each other?
Right.
Because yes, our children are of course very precious and amongst the most vulnerable of us, and but it's not just our children; it's treating other human beings, and a lot of it is about power. So I can have power over you, because I am in a more financially stronger position, politically stronger position. I'm a man, you're a woman. I can force you, I can intimidate you, and of course all of that is indicative of where we've evolved to, right? And in some cases, not very far.
Not very far, exactly. So parents, if you believe there is a family member, a friend, somebody close to you that acts suspiciously, your children are bringing a message to you that it's not clear, and they seem to be fearful to discuss it with you, pay attention to that. If your children are hiding themselves in the room and they're not talking, they look sad, they look frightened, in particular when they see somebody that we all know that, it's a family member or somebody, pay attention to that. If your children do not want to go somewhere to a family member's gathering, pay attention to that.
Right.
If they feel sick, if they have, lower abdominal pain, or they have irritation in their genitalia area, pay attention to that.
Right.
And if you're not sure about what to do, then I'm going to offer a hotline here, a hotline number here for you to call, and for children also, for anybody, they can use this hotline. It's 800-856-HOPE, HOPE. So that's 800-856-HOPE, HOPE. These are organizations that nonprofit, and they are there to help with incidents of, sexual abuse, domestic violence, and they provide the right guideline for people who call and ask for help.
So that I'm glad you gave that, because that's very important.
Yes.
Yeah. So
maybe you're not alone. You can call also people, your local therapist, your local physician, somebody that you trust, that they are in healthcare and they can provide help immediately. And when you make a report about this type of violence, they are reportable. So we are all mandated reporters.
Yeah, and so I want to say something, we're running out of time, but I want to say something also about, if the abuse is happening in your immediate family, let's say it's a father-daughter, or father-son, or even a mother-son. I mean, women are capable of this as well. It's not as frequent,
Right, right.
but it happens. And so then you're afraid to make the call because you're afraid that to get your parent in trouble. And what I want to say about that is that, it's certainly understandable that you're afraid, and it's certainly understandable that you want to protect your parent. And at the same time, your life matters. And that if you allow this to continue, your life is going to suffer. And you're the one who's going to pay the price of your parents' lack of boundaries.
Right.
And your parent needs help.
Yes.
And so, rather, so that if at least if you talk about it and someone comes out and talks to them, your parent has an opportunity to wake up and perhaps get some help for them.
Yes. So this is not something that's your fault. Don't believe that, you're embarrassing anybody. Just report it and stand up for yourself and stop the abuse. The number you can call is 800-856-HOPE, HOPE. So we are running out of time. We thank you for joining us for the past hour. We appreciate your contribution to our program. And I'm inviting you to join us tomorrow at 9 a.m. with another episode of Trauma, Codependency, and Addiction with Dr. Robert Jaffe and myself. And next Thursday for another episode of Human Sexuality. And until then, don't forget, all you need is love.
All you need is love. Talk to you later.
Have a wonderful afternoon.
And happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy safe Halloween.
Happy safe Halloween.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
AM Smart Talk Radio, KMET. Banning, Beaumont.